So I'm going to be presenting Peace in Nature from the geography discipline. So, seems to be frozen. I think it's because I used, we're just going to go on Google Chrome.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
You don't care if you can't see the screen, right?
What's that?
You don't care if you can't see the screen, right?
No, that's fine. I'll leave it up
Yeah,
to your
that's
artistic sensibilities.
obvious. Okay, cool. I assume.
I was saying there's a poem song. It's got some great stuff.
Thank you. Do you want me to put that like in the portfolio?
Sure.
Because like that's mostly what I've been writing for
Yeah,
like.
most certainly put it in.
Okay, cool.
And send some stuff to Sienna.
I forgot. Sorry.
No,
Like,
no problem.
up to here.
When you're
I know you're more busy than me, but like.
We're all busy. We're all busy. Yeah.
Not slowly. Okay. So we're going to restart that introduction. So I'm going to be presenting Peace in Nature from a geography discipline. So first we're going to look at how peace and nature are actually connected to geography. So the definition of geography is the nature and relative arrangement of places and physical features. So this includes the distribution of populations, resources, land use, and industries within the environment. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on environments within communities and how we can incorporate nature into them and the benefits of that. So how can we incorporate nature into urban cities? Well, there's a movement that's called biophilic cities. So this comes from the term biophilia, which is humans' innate connection to nature. So biophilic cities essentially are cities in which integrating nature into urban design and planning is of primary importance. So they see cities not as disconnected from nature, rather embedded in it. So there's a huge importance on fostering connections between people and nature. So this includes how you care about the nature and environment around you. It can be as simple as going for a walk in a nature park. So geodesigning in biophilic cities. So how are these cities designed? Well, as you can see, like this picture over here, and I have other pictures. So geodesigning in biophilic cities encourages urban planners to take a more holistic view of the place. So this means that like how can we look at buildings, neighborhoods, and entire cities differently and incorporate nature into them. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of Singapore City in a Garden, but basically they have been a biophilic city for 55 years, and they took the initiative to incorporate nature in different aspects of their city. So for example, you can see this picture over here. So this is a park connector that basically allows you to walk, bike, or jog from place to place without actually leaving vegetation. So you're actually elevated above the ground. So that's pretty cool. And I included other pictures. So Singapore and Melbourne are also, well, Singapore as I just mentioned, but Melbourne as well is a biophilic city. So you could see the creative use of design in the buildings and like the curvature. So yeah, and even the reflective buildings, it just creates a different ambiance if you see green rather than like a dusty gray. So what are the benefits of green spaces in urban cities? Well, the research suggests that from the reading that Jeff provided us with, green spaces provide us with environmental services. So it's a pretty well-known fact that vegetation and trees act as natural filters. So this improves our air quality, our water quality, and the quality of our soil. Trees actually have the ability to regulate our city temperature, which aids in global warming. Vegetation also provides a noise barrier, which can reduce noise levels. And a study in the reading that was provided to us says that those with access to a quiet side of their home actually have lower levels of stress and increased sleep quality. So that's pretty interesting. So there's also several health benefits. So as we've seen from previous presentations, the presence of greenery reduces tension and enhances relaxation. It's easier for us to perform better as well if there's green around us. So accessible green spaces, so this includes urban forests, gardens, nature parks. They may motivate us and encourage us to do physical exercise, so we're more likely to go outside, go for a run, go for a walk if there's a nice nature park around us. So residents who live by green spaces actually have lower levels of illness, which is very interesting. Community gardening can also help improve one's diet, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. And elderly residents who live by parks lined with trees passed for walking showed higher longevity because it got them out of the house. It got them motivated to do things outdoors and garden, stuff like that. So now we have to look at accessibility to green spaces. So unfortunately, there are racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic barriers in access to and quality of green spaces in neighborhoods in Montreal and in most urban cities. So generally lower socioeconomic neighborhoods have environments that are less conducive to physical exercise because of the dense population, the close proximity of buildings. So urban designers are trying to figure out how we can incorporate nature into these tight, close quarter spaces that's allowing everyone the access to parks, not just those who live in suburban areas like the West Island. So individuals from higher socioeconomic statuses are likely to be more active as the environment is in close proximity to green spaces. And lastly, we're going to be looking at how can nature lead to food security in urban cities. This is another element that's actually quite important when looking at geography and peace in nature. So we all know that access to nutrient-dense food is directly correlated to one's socioeconomic status. So this means that generally, if you're in a poor neighborhood or a lower socioeconomic neighborhood, then you're going to have less access to fresh produce than those living in, again, like suburban areas. So in central areas, one will have access to several small supermarkets, making it harder for them to complete one grocery order. So usually there's a compromise in an order because you're going to just these little supermarkets rather than going to one big IGA or one big metro. So this is why urban gardens are actually of primal importance in geography because they allow safety nets for low-income communities. So they provide fresh produce, they allow physical activity, and they foster relationships, obviously, because you're working together to create a beautiful garden and to get fresh produce. And they do not rely heavily on chemical fertilizers as well.
No. Okay, I'm just going to talk.
Oh, you can talk to my log in mine.
Actually,
Yeah. You can go. Thank you.
so I'm going to be mirroring Tanya's speech with like in the biological perspective, peace in nature, but I'm not going to focus more on like the fungi, but more on like the ecological and in general like what it means to be at peace with nature. So nature is we're nature, like everybody is nature, all the animals, all the little organisms are nature. And if we look at what biology means, it's a study of life. So that encompasses everything that we know that has like a that was born, that evolved or anything. So we are like a biological entity. We have plants are biological entities, and we also have, you know, underground we have biological entities who are more in the ecological sense of the biology term. So if we go back to what Tanya was saying with like the fungi who are helping flowers bloom and vegetation, you can see a symbiotic relationship which is very present, or it's supposed to be present with us humans as well, because if we look at nature in its resting state without our interference, nature lives in perfect harmony with itself. So the sun works to make, you know, flowers grow, and, you know, trees, they give us oxygen and they take away our CO2. Like we all are supposed to live in harmony. And if we look at how the biology of the earth and how our biology is designed, we thrive on helping others, and like because we receive help in return as well. So if we look at ourselves in our bodies, we have cells that are there to make us grow and make us live and make us help others grow and live too. So in that sense, peace in nature is inherent to our world. Even like we interfered in him, we have to learn to get it back, because we have taken it away after industrialization. We seem to have forgotten the notion that we are there to live in harmony with others, not to dominate on others. So if we look at how things were designed, you know, like at its core, we are meant to live in symbiosis and not in domination. So if we look again at the plants, they don't have the same intentions we do, because we seem to have developed into that idea that we can just conquer and be detached from everything. But if we look at how plants still interact with each other, they help each other out. We planted our tomatoes, and I my own Ivan, I was like, my tomatoes are gonna die because they're gonna be crowded by other tomatoes. Like, no, they all share the same space and they all share the same sun. They're not going to die or kill each other. They're in competition, but all in all, they live in harmony. And we have to learn to live in harmony as well. It's a lesson we can take from nature, from a biological perspective.
So hello, my name is Sydney, and I'll be presenting to veganism. So are animals being valued as much as humans? Humans are not seen as equal to nature, they are seen as something more superior. We all have individual rights that all need to be respected. So for example, slavery, we could all agree that that was a very cruel act, and it was we would never want to go back to that type of society again. It was very inconsiderate of us to think of other people, use them like that, and it made them feel like they are worthless and not respected at all. And this was an act of inconsideration. Sorry. This is how we treat animals nowadays, and it's not good for the society, and we don't understand that animals also feel pain, and they go through bad times just like us, and some emotions that animals take and have are loneliness, fear, aggression, frustration, motherly love, and pleasure, happiness, and many more. They're just like us, they're equal. And many people don't realize that the food on their plate was a live animal that has been going through torture from the beginning of their life to the end. They haven't really had much freedom in between. And humans are special because we have individual rights, and we are, because we see our lives as more important. But also animals, so what makes us different than animals? And so the answer here is nothing really. We're pretty equal. So similarities. Animals have their own goals and positive interests as well. They're valuable creatures that deserve everything that we have. So there's a race, there's a human race, and a race for others. And we are racist towards the animal race. And here's a video to kind of demonstrate a little more what I mean.
Victor Hugo said there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Well, animal rights today is now the greatest social justice issue since the abolition of slavery.
There has been an undeclared war on animals since the beginning of time because they're vulnerable, because you can pick on them, because they can't arm themselves, because they don't know that you're coming.
I forced myself to watch a documentary called Earthlings, and it's inside footage of factory farms. You just see that and you go, I can't participate in that.
Animals must be off the menu because tonight they are screaming in terror in the slaughterhouses, in crates and in cages.
And you think about the consumption and how fast they have to mass produce, and you can't possibly put together in your head one healthy, happy animal.
There is absolutely no trick to looking back on the great injustices of our time and condemning them. We understand that. We got that. The trick is always to look at what we're doing today as if we were some point in the future looking back and figure out what the oppressions and the injustices are that we're committing today and to get them out of our lives.
They haven't attacked us, they haven't done anything, and yet we continue to attack them, we continue to round them up, imprison them, strip them of everything, and slaughter them. For what?
Animals are not just other species, they are other nations, and we murder them at our peril. The peace map is drawn on a menu. Peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of justice.
For my whole adult life, I felt absolutely driven to try to convince people to consider animals, no matter what they're doing, whether they're buying something to eat or wear, or they've got a dog in their house. They need to think of what that animal is going through, to put that animal in the equation.
The axis of evil does not run through Iraq, Iran, or North Korea. It runs through our dining tables. Weapons of mass destruction are our knives and forks. Let's get animals off the menu and out of these torture chambers. It solves our environmental, water, human health problems, and ends cruelty forever.
Okay, so seeing that video, you can see the animals are not well treated. Okay. So 92% of Quebec's cows are in tie stalls, which are what you see here, and it's shown in the video. So clearly they don't even have space to move. They can only go from side to side, and they can't even do like a 180 degrees, and most of the time their head is stuck to a chain. So I don't know how you can imagine living like that. It's kind of pretty cruel. And all animals with values should have protected individual rights, including the right to life. So to ensure that cows constantly produce milk, they are impregnated by humans constantly throughout life, and they don't really have a break. Then this is shown in the picture right here. They have like something with sperm inside, and they insert it in the cow's uterus, and when the cow gives birth, well, when you have a baby in you, it's kind of emotional, you get attached, but then right the second that the cow gives birth to the calf, they are separated, and so this causes them to be depressed, and the calf is confused. Well, they're both confused, and they don't really know what's going on. And on top of this, they're forced to produce 27 kilograms of milk per day, and on average, they're supposed to produce 7 kilograms, so that's 20 kilograms more than what they're supposed to. And comparing this to humans, it's like forcing us to run a minimum of 6 hours a day. And I don't know about you guys, but I run 2 minutes. I'm so tired. Cows are often suffer from mutilation in their horns, tails, and udders. So without being given any anesthesia, so they're in so much more pain. So the health factor. We are perfectly healthy with a meatless diet. Dairy products are the #1 source for saturated fats. And when a human intakes double the amount of saturated fats, they are 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's when you get older. A diet centered around whole plant foods is the best way to reduce your heart disease issues, and it's proven in many patients. So milk contains pregnancy growth hormones, which is something that nobody really wants. It gives you acne, and it also produces many cancers, multiple cancers. So in conclusion, our society is currently not in peace with nature. Animals deserve to live their lives free from suffering and exploitation. But also we could fix this by allowing animals to be free and not being slave for consumers. So the animals not being slave for consumers. And a little quote from you saw the girl in the video is the founder of PETA. So her name is Ingrid Newkirk. She said, "When it comes to pain, love, joy, and loneliness, and fear, a rat is a pig, a dog is a boy. Each one values his or her life and fights the knife." And that's it.
Esme, you're okay? So Jamil, you're up. You're waiting for the computer to load. Is that right?
I'm waiting for if there's any questions for him.
Good.
Because mine is not really.
Yeah. Any questions for our panelists?
Do you think it's realistic for us, or like, not realistic, but do you think it will be possible for us to have a progressive society where we don't eat animals, despite the fact that we're still like disrespecting some humans and we're not able to get past that point?
That's a good question. Somebody brought that up for me earlier, but I think it's just there are a lot of people that are fighting for animal rights because there are already a lot of people focusing on rights for other people. I mean, so they already have more support than animals, and now we are in the process of gaining more support for animals. So I think it should be equal, and we will get to that point pretty soon.
You mentioned that,
We have a question over here.
Gabby mentioned that plants help each other a lot. Besides the mutualistic symbiotic relationship with the mycorrhiza fungi and other plants, what other ways do plants help each other?
Well, it all comes down to symbiosis, because anything that they can do to help each other is a symbiotic relationship, because it's not just them helping in a one-sided way, or they don't expect anything. It just works that way, that they help each other. Like when a plant gets some sunlight, they don't like, let's say, push another plant out. Like they might turn more towards the sun, but they will not necessarily kill the other plant. You know, like we're more prone to taking hastier decisions to put ourselves first, but plants, they tend to live in better harmony than we do. Like you won't, when you go to a forest, you see all these trees growing together. You don't see like 50 trees dead and one tree alive. Like they all share it together. They all live together, you know?
Costa, you had a question?
Yeah, like you said something about Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. Oh yeah.
True.
If you take double the amount of saturated fat, so like what is in dairy products, then you're 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's. I don't know the science behind it, but
Eating a lot of dairy will lead to Alzheimer's.
yeah, and acne.
And
I don't eat dairy, so I'm not.
I gotta cut down the lattes, right?
That's right. That's right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a comment. During the last semester, I did Bio 1, and we did an experiment with the radish seeds, because plants produce a chemical called allylochemical. Yeah, that chemical, and that chemical is the way they compete to actually have like more soil for themselves. So it kills other plants trying to grow. So they don't live in complete harmony.
They don't live in complete harmony. That's true. Not like the way our world was designed. We take things to further extremes than plants do. If you you don't agree, like you don't see a tomato taking a gun and killing another tomato. Like they naturally. But like it's a plant. But the way the world was designed, nature before interference, like if you go back, like I'm talking like millions of years ago, like back when there was like no humans with no like arms, like nothing to kill like one another or to dominate other parts of like, you know, the ecosystem, plants do live in relative harmony. They might compete for sunlight, they might compete for water, but there's more than enough to go around, and they stop at that once they get what they need. They don't go for more, and they don't search to dominate over the other plant. You understand what I mean? Like if you also look at underground, I'm gonna go back to what Tanya said about with the mushrooms. Like if you see, there's a much more like cooperation in the plant world than there is in ours, because there's mushrooms underground helping the roots grow, helping flowers grow, right? But we don't see that. We don't have like our own little mushrooms helping us grow. Like we just see a bunch of people like, you know, they judge behind other people's back, and they're just not nice. Whereas plants, they might compete. Like being competitive is like a part of who we are. But
No, they actually heal plants. It protects, let's say, the life. Let's say you plant like a soul of radish. Those radish are getting oxycoded as well. They like produce. Yeah, they produce that chemical in order for, like, let's say if you want to plant a tomato in that soil,
it will kill
it won't grow. So
but if you give it enough space to grow, that's the thing with nature. If you give it enough space to grow, it will be fine. If you go to a forest, they don't all secrete the chemical to kill all the other trees. You know what I mean?
Any other questions? Esme and then Simon.
I just wanted to share some knowledge while we were talking about like being peaceful with animals. I work at the SPCA and I get a lot of the same phone calls every day, and I wanted to like share a bit of info with you guys now that like summer's starting. If you see a litter of kittens outside, leave them there. The mom is gonna come back. She only comes back like once or twice a day to feed them. But if you take the kittens out of the place that they were at, most chances are they're gonna die in the next like 24 hours. So leave them there. Same thing with baby raccoons and squirrels. The only thing you want to do is if you see like one baby squirrel that fell from a tree, if you could put it in a box and attach it to a tree, like maybe like 5 foot high, that way the mom will be able to go get it. Those are just like little tips, because like many people think that they're doing the right thing, saving baby animals in summer, bringing them to like refuges and whatever. But it's actually like completely false information, and they actually die a lot of the time. So I just wanted to like share that for you guys.
Thanks, Esme. Simon?
We're just gonna add a comment about the plants and how they compete with each other depending. Like we, because I come from a village and there's a forest there, and in the forest there's just a small section with pine trees, and it was not naturally grown there. It was planted there by people, and they used a method. Oh shit! And they used a method like if they put certain trees as to a certain distance from one another, one out of the two is going to grow up, and the other one is going to stay really short, because this like they fight for nutrients and everything. So there's a struggle for survival. Like we have our own struggle for survival, but I understand your point at the same time when you mean there is more harmony in between.
Because also they can have enough, like if they're planted right next to each other, for sure one's gonna sprout faster.
Exactly.
Not maybe because they're competing, but also because it's just the way like one gets more sunlight. But if they're planted like in a good distance, they're not going to fight each other.
Yeah, so that's why like if you look at forests, like trees are a certain distance from another, and that's why it's more in between different species that you can find harmony them in between the same species. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. Yes, Talia.
Just about like farming and stuff, like I agree with everything you said, but a lot of the times it's like a bad light shed on farmers because of things like that. But like I've worked on 2 dairy farms, like small farming, and I've never seen people who like love their animals more than like those farmers. And I know that's not everyone, but like in small farming communities, there's a lot of like love for the animals too.
Yeah.
That's
It is true. No, I know somebody too. They have like I'm really close to them, and they grow but like they raise chickens and rabbits and stuff, and she like hugs them all the time and stuff. But like, yeah, it is a job and stuff. I'm more talking about the ones that are industrial and really intense, and where most of the people buy the products from, because those little markets are probably more expensive and harder. Like not everybody can afford that.
Chantal?
Yeah, in the large industries where animals are raised, that kind of cruel way that you just showed us, is it better to grow it in smaller farms like what the other person just said, with all the love and the harmony, and then still at the end slaughter them for food? So which one do you want to know?
Well, kind of like, which one am I? I'm obviously more for the one where you could love, because they would have a life. They would also have like experience love and affection, and well, I like in between. I know like if we don't kill any animals that our world could be overpopulated with animals, but I mean,
Yeah, and I don't know, because it still defeats the purpose. The lone farmer who raises his animal with all love and affection, and finally takes his better.
and then you're just taking it away from them, kind of thing. I know, but I like living in a little thing like this that is just crazy. I would go insane. Like I don't know how you can do that, and it's just like it's torture. Would you rather live in torture and then be killed, or would you rather live actually a life and then die at a young age or something?
I think that's a nice point that Sydney's making, in the sense, like, would you step into that creature's shoes? We're all going to die, so, right? So if I'm living a free life and I die a quick death and my flesh goes to feed people, fine. But I would not like to live in a confined space filled with hormones and all sorts of... Olivia, and then...
If we just let like animals like die naturally, like of old age, can we still eat them?
That's a very good question. Does anybody have the answer to that?
It depends if it's healthy, but like.
And how long after it died, I guess, would be an important consideration as well. Gabby?
Can I just like add to something? It's just more of a general for like all this, like no matter what discipline you choose to analyze piece of nature from, it's all about baby steps. So like if you're asking Sydney if letting an animal get killed after having a happy life on the farm versus factory farming, well, for sure, like first you start off by not buying meat that's raised. You make that commitment not to buy meat that was raised in a factory farm, and if you want to take that commitment further, then you might decrease your consumption of like, you know, anything in a farm in general. Like even if they do love their animals, and I have no doubt that they do, like it's all about like where you stand on the issue, like of how far you want to take that commitment, like a factory farming versus like the traditional way of farming. Like they both end up the same way. It's just a different means. So it depends how far you want.
Any other questions or comments? I guess at the end of the day, we each have to make our own decisions and try and look at the facts. Be as true to yourself as possible. I think that's to be a scientist. I like to be a scientist of the self. Look at the facts, engage compassion, empathy, and make your own call at the end of the day. Panelists, thank you very much. Jamil will be presenting.
So, my take on peace and nature is not going to be like anyone else. It's going to be between my personal relationship and indigenous relationship with their indigenous land. Okay, and how I personally connect to that. And so what I did is I took my favorite poems and I made a kind of storyline reflecting my own life and how I feel living in Canada, in a land I'm not native to, and how I feel about my home country that I cannot go back to. And so here is. And it's really like, looks, in French, it's Keten. It's gonna be very cheesy. But like, bear with me, and it's gonna be really awkward for me. How are you doing?
Peace to a land that was created for peace, yet never saw a peaceful day. I was born for a closed house that I called mine, but never entered. I cried, not for the house, but for the memories I could have had inside of it. I tried to enter, but the soldiers stopped me. They gun to my chest, they stripped me of my hope, stripped me of my land. They bulldozed my home, and made me build one for another man. With anger in my heart, I stood facing their tanks. Like them and my mother raised, like the man that I am. I took my best shot, but they shot me first. And I fell to the ground. And I fell. I felt the fall of a Palestinian man. They separated me from my pride and pushed me to my knees. They looked straight in my eyes, the same eyes that begged the Nazis. But I do not beg, for I come from this land. I will stand, I will climb, I will spread my wings, elevate and rise. I will rise, we will rise, So here I am, too foreign for home, too foreign for here, never enough for both. Who is the real stranger? The one who lives in a foreign land and knows he belongs elsewhere, or the one who lives the life of a foreigner in his native land and has no place to belong? And I am both. I've always been out of the fold. No one knew what was going on in my head. I don't go deep into others. I had another case, another land, and a war that matters no one else but me. I am from a land where it does not snow, where martyrs fall like rain, where kids are in chains. My ancestors tell me the land where the stones know you is worth more than the land where the people know you. Before I left, my grandmother hugged me and wept. She used to say, the uprooted flower is beautiful, but doesn't live long without dust and soil. And here I am, yet again, dying in exile.
And I'm going to share a couple of pictures of me in my homeland. That was the plan. So here's my grandparents and their children when they were first exiled to Baghdad. Fun times. Never got the chance. This is me and my cousin. This is me in the largest refugee camp in Bethlehem. It's called the Aida Refugee Camp. And the key symbolizes the return, so that I'm technically like a refugee. So a refugee is a person who wants to return to his homeland, and that we never forget. This is, I don't know if you ever saw a picture of Jerusalem. It has the Dome of the Rock, and I could never enter Jerusalem. And this is the closest I've ever been to the Dome of the Rock, and I could ever be. This is my village. My two little cousins. So cute. This is like the Nablus. It's the village I come home at. It's the biggest city next to my village. This is me jumping in the water. That's not in Palestine, that's in Jordan. And this is my graduation. This is my friends. And behind us there's a picture of our friend who couldn't make it to the graduation because he got assassinated. And yeah, that's it for me.
Do you want to take questions, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions for Jamian?
Yes.
Yes, in your picture, why could you not go into Jerusalem? That you have to stand so far to take the shot out of Jerusalem and the stone dome.
The Dome of the Rock. So
The Dome of the Rock.
why I can't go to Jerusalem is because I was not born in Palestine. I was born here, except I'm considered a Palestinian, so I have something called a green card that I have to carry with me everywhere I go. And so when you have a green card, you cannot leave the West Bank. So basically, I can't go to Jerusalem. My my grandmother comes from a city called Haifa, and it's by the sea, and I've never seen the sea. No, I could never go there because of a piece of paper, basically. And yeah, like from my village that I showed you, it's the closest village to the sea, but it's still considered in the West Bank, so you see the reflections of the sea, but you can never get to it. You know, so that was some summers, you know, stuff like that. And so I did this to portray my feelings of being also like a Canadian. I was born here, I'm technically a Canadian, but I never, like in Western society, I never felt Canadian. I never felt like I was welcomed here. Like when they put like Islamic terrorists, they all look like me. And so I've never accepted the fact that like I'm Canadian, and nor do people accept it. As we said earlier, like if somebody asks me where I'm from, and then I say I'm Canadian, they're not going to be content with that answer. But if I say I'm Palestinian, well, they're going to be like, oh, you know, they have this certain ideas about us that came through the media, dehumanization, calling us terrorists and everything, while Palestinians are one of the most educated societies in the Middle East and contestably in the world. So yeah, that's it.
Just whatever, since we're sharing, I would suggest that you are Canadian and you're also Palestinian Canadian, and if people don't accept you as Canadian, that's their problem,
Yeah.
not yours. You're born here, you have a Canadian passport, you're a Canadian citizen, and Canada is supposed to be officially a mosaic where we bring our history to this new land and together build this new land for our mutual benefit.
Right.
So if you don't feel accepted by others, that's their problem, and I would hope that your intelligence and compassion and love makes Canada a better place. That
Yeah,
you know.
and that's a great point where the problem with, that brings up the problem with like some Muslim youth or Middle Eastern youth in Western countries getting radicalized. The cause of radicalization is that these people that fight with ISIS that come from France or Canada or whatever, they're just like me. Like it could have been me, except I found other ways of expressing myself through like poetry and art, where then they look back to their society, like their own, like for example, I'm Palestinian. If I look back to my community here, there's not a lot of Palestinians. So what they do is they turn to Canada, to the Canadian community, like the society, where they don't feel accepted as well. And so ISIS and terrorist groups or whatnot tells them, hey, we'll give you a family, we'll give you like a home, we'll give you friends, you know, and that's how radicalization works, and most people fail to see it, you know.
Yeah. Gabby?
I actually wrote a paper for my integrated seminar class about what makes a Canadian a Canadian. And like, although we are supposed to be a mosaic, like I've been said, like we're not. That's just a lie, because we're all very individualistic, right? So when someone comes from a foreign country or foreign to them and they have prejudice against them, then that person that comes in doesn't feel accepted, right? So Canada in general, we all, like, it starts with, like, you know, our values as like a country. They have to be like reshaped and they have to include everybody. So it doesn't mean that the people inside are not already Canadian, you know?
Yeah.
It's just,
I think at the end of the day, it's up to each individual to embrace whoever they want to embrace. And my Canada embraces all sorts of diversity. That's my Canada, and that's what I bring to the world. If others choose to be a racist or prejudiced, that's their choice, and my hope is that they change. But as far as my personal responsibility is concerned, is to embrace all people and nature, and all of us together for our mutual benefit.
Before Joe there,
Sure.
sorry, Joe. Okay. My second presentation at the end of the class, if I get the time to do it, is actually how to help minorities and to feel at home. You know, so it's like 2 parts. You know, if I get the chance.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add like a more positive perspective on the whole like how an immigrant can feel at home and not at home in Canada. From my perspective, I was born in Algeria and I was raised for like 10, 11 years old. And when I came here, I actually felt very welcome. I actually felt like I had opportunities and like I have a life that was here that was like my life here is so much. I can't even emphasize on how much good it is compared to the life I would have had there. And so yeah, some people actually feel like I've never went back there because I feel like I define myself as a Canadian, and even if like my community sometimes feel like, oh, she's a sellout, oh, she never went back, oh, she does that and all that, but like I feel like I've really embraced the Canadian culture and I'm really proud. And I'm proud of like what Canada brings to people in general.
Thank you very much. So as not to run out of time, thank you very much, Jamil. Victoria, Shania. Ladies and gentlemen, Peace and Nature presentation. Woo!
Which are very different, that have very different outlooks on nature. So the first one, let's start with the negative side of things, is this place called Norilsk. I can't even say it. Norilsk, Russia.
Okay.
And it's the most northernmost city in the world, so it's very cold. It's almost a tundra kind of environment. Yeah. Thank you. So there's almost no trees because of polluted soil caused by nickel mining and melting. So that's where they make their money, like that's their economy. It's a nickel mine that they have. So this causes intense pollution, which shows itself in acid rain and smog, but also terrible air quality. And there's like higher risks of cancer amongst people. Breathing is difficult. And also, like I said, trees don't grow, or like they're very weak. Same goes for plants. Here are some sad photos. You can see like the mine, the big hole. It's really like apocalyptic, I find. And also the streets, like the sunny picture. I feel like it's really strange how there's no trees on the sidewalk. Like usually in cities, like there's little trees on the side. But in Norilsk, it's like there's nothing, and it's just buildings. Yeah, and it's also like during winter, there's not a lot of lights, so it's just a generally depressing place.
Poor Norilskians.
You have to get out of the PowerPoint.
You have to get off. It's not a very long video. I'm going to take like a bit of it.
Miscommunication hurts your team's productivity.
So here, there's a bit of trees.
Мне нравится растение, потому что от этих растений больше кислорода. И я бы хотела очень много растений. Деревья раньше были красивые, но как стало старым,
Do que foi agora, Misha?
При такой специфике города у меня вот появилась необходимость в растении. Я с ним лучше себя чувствую. Здесь, на Рижске. Червяки, они перерабатывают из плохой земли и делают хорошую землю. Это очевидно, что здесь невозможно жить дольше, отравля газом, этими всеми отходами от производства, и по-другому быть и не может.
So I just found that interesting because that guy used plants to like lift his mood, and that shows how nature is really linked with our like psychology and mood. Now, for the happier side of things, there's a little town in Japan called Kamikatsu. And it's a zero waste town, or almost. By 2020, they want to completely be zero waste. So all of the garbage that they produce is recycled in some way. Currently, there's 45 categories of recyclable materials. So they have a lot of bins, and they have like instruction booklets that tell them like, oh, this material goes here and the other goes there. So they're very organized, and it's interesting because in Japan, there's also a lot of like useless packaging. So for example, here this banana, it's like a single banana in a plastic container. So it's like a good initiative. And in contrast, the pictures are much nicer. I'm sure you'd rather be here than in the other place. The last one.
Aluminum cans, steel cans, the spraying cans, plastic cap, plastic bottles, other plastic caps, metal caps, clear glass bottles, brown glass bottles, other colored glass bottles, soft paper tubes, hard paper tubes. Right now we have 45 categories of segregation, so it's very detailed. The recycling rate as of last year is 79.3%. By 2020, we'd like to have zero waste. So the main concept of zero waste originally is how do we prevent making any waste from the very beginning. Here, people bring their waste to the collection center, and before that, they need to separate the materials, otherwise we can't recycle. I really consider about what we buy, because after we buy it, we know that we need to segregate. And then if it's too much packaged with different materials, and that's too much work for me, then I don't want to buy it. This is our newest recycling segregation guidebook. Last year, we kind of reviewed it, then renewed it into 45 categories. Because since 2002, we had more operators who could recycle more materials. So we had increasing of like several recycling categories. Kurukuru shop is just located inside that waste collection center. Kurukuru means circular in Japanese. People in the town can bring anything they don't use anymore but still usable. So if they find something that they want, they can take it home for free. So last year, we had around 13 tons of things brought into the shop. And then out of that, around 11 tons are taken away by someone. So it's really circulating. Yeah, of course, like everyone would say that, you know, how do you get the collaboration with the people in the town, right? So I think that has been the biggest challenge. The town office staff They visited each villages, each communities to really explain about like why we are doing, how do we do that. They really performed in front of them. Also, was in the community, we really picked up like the grannies or like whoever who was really passionate about that, so that they can really influence people inside the town. The waste collection center, which normally are considered to be dirty and not nice, but people actually gather there to actually chat, and then that place kind of becoming a community center as well. In Kamikatsu, we have more than 2,000 visitors every year to come and learn about zero waste. We are expecting that some of them started some initiative from very simple step forwards.
Yeah, so I just find that town is an excellent example of peace with nature. Because they really made an effort and it works out.
Alright, so as Andrea pointed out, the health and well-being of the environment we live in has a huge effect on our own health and well-being, and vice versa. And a great way to improve our peace with nature is to become more aware of our environment. So initially what we wanted to do for this presentation was to go outside and have you guys pick out a spot in the gardens and then sit down for a few minutes and either draw or write about an element of nature that spoke to you. Unfortunately, the weather doesn't really allow us to do that today, but the objective behind that activity was to increase our awareness of the nature that surrounds us. So awareness is defined as the state or ability to perceive, feel, or be conscious of events, objects, or sensory patterns. And becoming more aware of any sphere of your life can really help you better understand problems, because it gives you a more objective, a better distance from your problems, and you can understand them better. And so becoming more aware of your environment can help you create a spiritual connection to nature, as well as often it will make you want to learn more about environmental issues and thus become more eco-friendly. So it can really improve not only your peace with nature, but also your inner peace. So there was a 2016 Canadian study done where they had one group of people just go about their life normally, and then the other group of people were asked to take pictures of elements of nature that they walked by every day. And the objective was to demonstrate the effect of noticing nature more on your life. So, in people who live in cities like us, often we either don't go a lot outside, or when we do, we're not really aware of the trees, the birds, the insects, the sun, the air, everything that surrounds us. But the study found that the people who took pictures and so that noticed the nature more, they had overall a greater sense of the meaning to their life. They had better life satisfaction. Their psychological and social well-being were improved, as well as their willingness to help others. So there were more signs of pro-social behavior from that group. And all of these were independent of the weather or of the things they were taking photographs of, or the time of day, or whether they were doing an activity or not. So it was really just the simple fact of going outside and noticing the things that they walk by every day.
So why is nature and the environment so important? Here's a quote from the Huffington Post that I found. Nature is not simply a warehouse of resources to serve human needs. Rather, it is highly integrated, interdependent functioning systems upon which all life forms, including the soil, water, plants, animals, and humans, depend on for survival. In fact, modern science has provided extensive empirical evidence which indicated that nature was a complex collection of water, air, soil, animal, plants, and human beings. The components were sufficiently interdependent that the failure of one part of the system could undermine the productivity of the other parts. As a result, it is necessary for us to treat the natural environment with love and respect, because the failure of the system would ultimately threaten the subsistence of human beings. So our environment is important because we need it to survive. Here's part of the reading that was assigned to us by Tanya Dali from the Biology Department at Hudson. Without biodiversity, there is no future for humanity, says Prof. David McDonald at Oxford University. The air you breathe, the water you drink, and the food you eat all ultimately rely on biodiversity. Some examples are obvious. Without plants, there would be no oxygen, and without bees to pollinate, there would be no fruits or nuts. Others are less obvious. Coral reefs and mangroves swamps provide invaluable protection from cyclones and tsunamis for those living on the coast, while trees can absorb air pollution in urban areas. Others appear bizarre. Tropical tortoises and spider monkeys seemingly have little to do with maintaining a stable climate. But the dense hardwood trees that are most effective in removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere rely on their seeds, being dispersed by these large fruit eaters. When scientists explore each ecosystem, they find countless such interactions, all honored by millions of years of evolution. If undamaged, this produces a finely balanced, healthy system which contributes to a healthy, sustainable planet. So why do we need to be at peace with nature? Everything is interconnected, and if we continue to constantly fight against and destroy our environment, whether it be through climate change or deforestation, exploitation, or urbanization, we're not only destroying our future as humans on Earth, but all other living organisms as well. We need to be at peace with nature. We need to love, respect, and take proper care of nature and our environment. I think that if we are at peace with nature, we will also be more at peace with ourselves and others as well.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about 10 easy ways you have to make a positive environmental impact. So these are all simple and realistic choices to make that can lead to positive differences. So the first one is to support farmers markets. So basically, I want to encourage you guys, whatever, to buy more local products, farm produce. It could have a dramatic impact on both the person's health and the environment. So it's better to support local, organic, and independent farmers and have the opportunity to eat seasonally. So everything they produce during the season, it's always good to eat fresh. So it's also good to fill your body with produce that is at its freshest, like I said. And also, according to a research conducted by the National Resources Defense Council, I don't know if you guys knew, but let's say that, for example, we'll bring it from the farm to the supermarket, so it's going to take 1,500 miles for it to get there. So while it gets there, so it's not like the food could get polluted. They want to start making toilet paper made with recycled paper. So the third impact is to wash better with cold water. So you can use hot water, but don't overdo it, you know. So take a shower. So take a shower you're very sometimes you're extremely hot, medium, you know. Okay. So I'm also going to talk about bad bottled water habits. So according to research conducted by National Geographic magazine, Americans purchased approximately 7 billion gallons of bottled water. So that makes approximately 22 billion plastic bottles. So basically they get thrown away, and most of the times they don't get recycled properly. So basically, what that means is so it takes 1.5 million barrels of oil to produce these plastic bottles, which could fuel approximately 100,000 cars a year. So it makes a big difference between throwing it on the ground or putting it in a proper place, like a recycling bin. So there's a few solutions to that. You know, you can buy a water filter, make sure it's filtered properly, or drink tap water. And that's it there. So or you could just recycle the plastic bottles. then you can reuse them. So another method is to reuse gift wrapping paper. So the amount of paper that can be saved is astronomical. If you could each recycle the wrapping paper, it's safe for like maybe you get 2-3 gifts a year. So each person gets 2-3 gifts a year. So at the end of the day, it makes a difference. So like if you put them on the side, a box, whatever, a bag, so you could save your bowls, ribbons, and wrapping paper. That's not a problem. So also 6, let's say you go to grocery shopping, like I'm not telling you to say no, but like you just buy it. No, but like, at the end of the day, it's your choice, you know. So like better, like you spend a couple extra bucks and you buy like those reusable bags, like cotton handbag, you know. Also, if you like to plant stuff, like have a few house plants that can be beneficial because they can assist in the process of removing indoor air pollution if you cultivate and care for them properly. So it can also fight environmental toxins in your house. So that's up to you, you know. So also it's better to eliminate junk email, like basically like all the mail that you get, like I don't know, like pamphlets for restaurants, you know. So like you can call like the person responsible and say, no, I don't want that. Okay, so by bulk, meaning that like you want to reduce the amount of packaging materials, or it can make a big difference in the environment. So let's take the example of a packaged tea. So like tea, for example, like you're gonna have like most of the time it comes like square. So basically when you buy like a tea package or something, like it's gonna come with a cardstock paper box that wraps it around the plastic. So basically the paper that's found inside the plastic. So like when you wrap the tea, the plastic that is wrapped around the tea bag obviously, the string that keeps the tea, the staple, and the bag. So the solution is just buy bulk loose leaf tea, or just use your own tea infuser. And last but not least, like drive green. So I mean, like try and buy a hybrid, an electric car, show the money to, you know. Carpool with a friend, you know. It's never, you can't go wrong with that. Or a co-worker if you want. Bike to work, walk to work. I don't think you need to use your car every day, you know. So if you want to drive smarter, like drive smarter behind the wheel. So like get timely tune-ups and keep your tires inflated to the proper pressure to ensure maximum gas saving efficiency. Set cruise control if you're on the highway, so that way like you're not gonna burn a lot of gas. And do your stops gently, like because you don't want to like overdo it and like pollute the air, you know. That's it.
I appreciate you give everybody a choice, you know? It's always your choice. You're not enforcing anything on anybody. That's appreciated, Costa. Thank you very much. I'd love to ask you questions, but I'm concerned that we're going to run out of time. I think it was very clear. Your message was very clear and very well presented. Thank you all very much. Yes, Elizabeth.
I wanted to share with you guys, I got this bracelet recently, and it's from a company called For Ocean. And for every bracelet purchased, 1 pound of garbage is removed from the ocean, and the bracelet is made out of recycled material.
Can you send a link to the whole class?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Everyone on Facebook.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I am Victoria.
So we're a part of the professional photography program here at Dawson, and our first initial thing was to bring everybody outside, but the weather's kind of like not great. So instead, we figured we'd show a bit of like our pictures, pictures that we took for class, or pictures that just we took like that. Because I mean, we just like nature. We're always outside on location shooting, so nature just really helps us with our work, and kind of our work forces us to go outside more. and enjoy what we don't necessarily do in the class, you know, because we're always inside. So yeah, so basically since you can't go outside, we thought we would show our pictures, and as well, if you guys have pictures, you can send to us. I included my email at the end, and then we could all show the class next class or again. So yeah, here is our pictures.
Wow.
Was it last summer?
Yeah. I was. You can work. Really? She does paper person. Morgan and Taylor came on this yeah, that's, I know. Yeah.
Do you find that taking photos of nature changes your mood or your outlook?
I'm
Or
like way more happier if I'm shooting on location versus in studio, because here at Dawson, we're like in the basement, there's no light. The only light is like the flashes and everything. It kind of gets pretty depressing to be
so there's a significant difference
Yeah.
between shooting indoors and shooting outdoors.
Yeah, I find my work is way better when I'm outside than in the studio.
Do you think that taking photos of nature, flowers and such kind of opens your heart to them? Do you feel a certain kinship or some sort of relationship with them through the photo? Through
Yeah,
taking?
I have there's a park in my house, and I always go every year, and I take almost the same picture every year because I like to see like the growth.
Cool.
Like, if it looks different or the sky and everything.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, like.
Well, yeah, go Shania.
I like taking pictures more outside than in the studio because like we're all like in one small studio, like 20 something students. You just feel like way more free to do whatever you want, like portraits or just landscapes, pictures of nature.
Excellent. It's an interesting relationship between
Yeah.
enclosure and freedom, right? We all feel better when free from constraints. Thank you very much. Any questions for Shania and Victoria? Camilo, 4 minutes?
Yes.
Go for it, my man.
So, I had the chance in February. Ivan sent us out like a flyer about a peace conference, and I got the chance to go to meet a lot of people which represent Dawson. And so I did like 8 workshops on different things, but it's gonna be too long to show them all. So I'm just gonna bring talk about 2 that inspired me the most, and that related as well to my presentation in some way. This is how much busy, how much work I have to do at the end of the semester.
You're not alone, Jimmy. You're not alone.
Power of arts. We're going to talk about the power of arts. So what is arts? We have a lot of artists here. Can somebody give me one definition of art?
Self-expression.
Self-expression. Sounds good. Art involves a lot of things, and it's a way of bringing people together. Because art, when you see a picture, for instance, or a drawing, you don't need to understand a certain language or cultural background, you know? Everybody can see art and enjoy to a certain extent art. And that's how art brings us all together. Now, there's different types of art. So, which is that? Why art? So, art brings people together. people from different ethnic backgrounds, languages, and you can just connect with people, even if you can't speak to them or even relate to them. You see something together and you can just enjoy it. So I had the chance to do a workshop with Les Danseurs, and in the title, you had to sign up for the workshops, and in the title it says, being a black woman in Canada. Okay, so I was like, hey, I want to see that. And so it didn't turn out like I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be like a talk, but instead I had to dance some Afro-Caribbean dancing, which I don't encourage you to imagine in your head. Because it was very bad for me, but in general I really liked it. And so their mission was to bring back some identity, some sense of home for the black youth in certain communities in Toronto. And so they created Les Danseurs, and they started performing at schools, cultural events, and give classes, and they kept track of the evolution of the girls they were teaching, and their grades went up, family relations, they made new friends, and it just helped them being better in general. So that was the first one, just to be quick. The second one, I met Mr. Al-Fadi, who's a world-renowned designer. And this is his story about how he stopped the war with art. So, in Niger, there was a civil war between the north and the south. And it was about economy. The north wasn't having enough benefits from the oil from the south, and they were really struggling. And so there was some terrorist attacks and Islamist terrorism threat. But Al-Fadi, while the war was going on, he wanted to show the world a different image of his country. He wanted to show the people that even in the middle of the desert, the Niger desert, in Africa, we could have art. And so he started a fashion show in the middle of the war. And so with the fashion show, a lot of people flew in from diverse countries, and there was an economic boom for this particular region, and he does it every year. Al-Fadi was a great person. I got the chance to meet him. He even gave me his number, and we always talk. And he tells me often about how you never have to give up. How there has been attempts to assassinate him for 4 times, but he never gave up his art, passion, and just to bring, he wanted to bring another perspective of Islam, because he designed modest Islamic dress, but also a different type of dress, and he shows the kind of Islam which promotes acceptance and tolerance. Here's a photo of Al-Fadi and I.
Jamil, we're out of time, so if you want to just kind of show us just a few quick highlight images, you know.
No, I couldn't take pictures.
You weren't allowed to take pictures.
That was the only picture I took.
Okay, do you have a concluding statement about your...
Concluding statement is art is great, you know. That's it.
Thank you very much, Jamil.